Offices on Brainerd Road and in Soddy Daisy, just north of the Bilo. That's EJ Pelton. Call 622-3156. Think ahead, 622-3156.
If the South would have won, we'd have had it made. I'd probably run for president of the southern states. The day Elvis passed away would be our national holiday. If the South would have won, we'd have had it made.
NASCAR, Laura Ingram, Dennis Miller, David Toulis, Coast to Coast AM, and CBS Radio News. Chattanooga's news, talk, and sports leader.
News Talk 1240.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. I think they were the most powerful words ever politically written and spoken by man. That paragraph created a sea change worldwide when we decided no longer to be under the thumb of King George in England. Americans were considered at that time, after this declaration was signed, to be terrorists, rebels, thugs, seditionists, and treasonists, because we were breaking away from the King of England. We were breaking away from a system that believed when you were born, you were of a particular status, whether it be a nobleman or a common man. And I don't like the word common man. Common man denotes that there is someone, some physical being that's supreme, that's over you. And the only supreme being over you is God. We hold these truths to be self-evident. Look at those words that Jefferson drafted, because that's why we're celebrating today and tomorrow, the 4th of July. Most Americans polled don't know why we're celebrating the 4th. Oh, it's because of freedom. It's because we can eat a hot dog. It's because America's free. I blame that kind of stupidity on not only the government system of lower learning, called the public schools, but on parents, on moms and dads. And I'll bring it back generationally. And I'm 57, my generation was taught kids are better seen than heard. You don't draft an opinion. You don't talk religion and politics. And my position is and was, that is a recipe for disaster. The second you roll out of bed, everything is politics. And your being is religious, whether you believe in a supreme being or not. So it's all about religion and politics. I say to regain our constitutional republic, in that we need to purge the occupiers in Washington, D.C., in Nashville, in Harrisburg, in the capitals of the states. We need to be educated and take action and use one of the most powerful words that we have in our vocabulary, and that is no, the word no. Because compliance is death. It's death to your soul. It's death to Christianity. It's death to what's right. It's death to our republic. So when Thomas Jefferson decided to draft this and get the unanimous consent based on this draft, he signed his death warrant. This was basically telling King George, catch me if you can, kill me if you can. Remember, unanimous consent. It's hard to get anyone to agree on anything. This was unanimous. Once again, the most powerful words, I believe, politically ever spoken by man. We hold these truths to be self-evident. There's no such thing as a true fact. Either it's true or it isn't. There is no such thing as a true opinion. Either it's true or it isn't. But we hold these truths, not this truth, these truths to be self-evident, which means there is no need for further evidence. Look at that in the sky. It's a sun. It's a moon. It's the stars. It's self-evident. It's raining today. It's self-evident. You need no further evidence. So we hold these truths to be self-evident. Well, what truths? That all men are created equal. Now, if you're created, there's got to be a creator. So the belief here was, I'm at least second in line, that someone created me. That they are endowed by their creator with certain inalienable rights. Certain rights. So now this declaration is setting up a system of government. And it's saying, here are the certain rights that we're endowed with. What are these certain rights? Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And nowadays we'd say in 2015, well, life, we have a right to life, we have a right to liberty, we have a right to pursue happiness, we have right to marry a boyfriend, girlfriend, right to go to the store, right. What are rights? All rights come from a supreme being. The right to life. That means to breathe, to go about your day, to work, to interact, to raise a family, to worship. The ability to not have that life taken without due process of law, because you have a right to life. Liberty. Not freedom. Liberty. Words are important and they mean things. They mean something. If words mean nothing, then why communicate? Let's call a dog a cat and a cat a dog. Let's call marriage between Joe and John and Bill and Bob and Sue and Sally. Because words have no meaning. They mean nothing. That among these are life, liberty. 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 Not freedom. See, freedom is a deer trapped in 100 acres that's fenced. That's freedom. He has his freedom to roam within that 100 acres. He may not even know there's a fence there because he stays in the woods. But liberty gives you the unfettered ability to do what you choose to do. That is liberty. To do whatever you choose to do. Now, there may be consequences for what you do, but liberty gives you the ability to make the ultimate choice. The pursuit of happiness. Why would we need a doctrine to say we need to pursue happiness? Because until this God-blessed nation was born, you had no right to happiness. You had no right to life or liberty. Your life was the life of the kings. You were owned by the king. You were a human being. A human being, by definition, is a monster. You were born a monster, and you were owned by the king. You weren't created equal. You didn't have equal rights. But good old Jefferson, a scholar of history, based on a lot of interesting doctrine, drafted many declarations of independence, and this was his final draft. To secure these rights, secure rights, that's interesting. Secure your goods, secure your house, secure your children, to make sure they're not easily taken away. How do we do this? Well, it says it right here. That's to secure these rights. Governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. This is interesting. Deriving their just powers, which means there's unjust powers. So we need to look at what the just powers are to then determine what the unjust powers are. So governments are created by you and me. We are the Rome, and those powers are limited. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, this is interesting. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, what ends? The ends that they are deriving their just powers from the consent of the government. Well, whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Interesting. So can we then conclude from that statement that everything that's been going on in Washington since about 1860 is individuals that have been elected and are hired to oversee and perpetuate the growth of the fascist, Marxist, socialist, communist welfare state are acting unjustly, out of their bounds? Can we also then conclude that it would be prudent to remove the occupiers that no longer adhere to these principles? Just asking questions. Prudence indeed will dictate that government long established should not be changed for light and transient causes. And accordingly, all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer, which evils are sufferable, than to right themselves by abolishing usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism. It is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. And Jefferson, being a student of history, understood that we are more likely just to suffer. You know, we're just going to get on that train and hope for the best. Maybe there's not a gas chamber at the end. You know, I'm just going to, instead of objecting to taking your filing, Bob and Bill, because you're really not married, even though, 5 lunatics at the Supreme Court believe you are, and they're wrong. It was their opinion, because the Supreme Court gives their opinion. It's not law. It's an opinion. That I, the clerk of courts, will refuse to accept that for filing, because I took an oath. And if I accept that for filing, that Bill and Bob are married, I violated my oath. But instead of fighting back, I'm going to cave. Jefferson knew that. He knew people were more likely to just say, why fight? And the system knows that. Why do you think they charge people with 10 crimes and 20 and 30 so they can get you to plead guilty to 1? You don't have time to fight all this. Even though you may be right. You don't have the time, the effort, the energy, the money. They're the government. They're big. They got guns. They got dogs. They got weapons from 30,000 feet up, could kill you. Scares me. Well, guess what? So did England at that time. As a matter of fact, in comparison, they were much more powerful than modern day United States, if you compare it weapon for weapon, man for man back then. But yet, these brave individuals said, enough is enough is enough. Now, there had to be a justification, and has to be a justification for throwing off abuse. You can't just shoot the spouse that you claim abuses you. You have to have evidence. You have to show that your life is in peril. You can't just go, willy-nilly trying to change things politically or otherwise because you have an opinion. You have to show hard, concrete evidence and facts. And from that, then you may have a justification for making a change. And the Declaration of Independence was not only about justifying a change, but setting down the proper foundation for future generations and future governments. That mankind are more disposed to suffer, which evils are sufferable, than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuse under absolute despotism, it is the right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such it is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their form systems of government. Their former system of government, the history of the present King of Great Britain, is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having the direct object, the establishment of an absolute tyranny over the states. Absolute tyranny over the states. What are we seeing today from the federal government? This isn't the United States of America. This is the States United, where the Constitution was to limit powers of government. Jefferson said, trust no more in man, but bind him by the chains of the Constitution. And obviously, this was prior to the Constitution. However, we were setting up a system whereby government at the federal level would have very limited powers, very defined limited powers. An example would be ISIS. Now they claim, oh, you need to be afraid ISIS may attack. If ISIS attacks, it's on the direct shoulders of federal agencies in charge of protecting you because that's their job. Their job is not to give out welfare. Their job is not to steal your money and redistribute wealth. Their job is not to interfere with states. That's not their job. Now, lawyers will claim that, well, the Commerce Clause gives the feds the right to regulate commerce. Well, the regulation of commerce is to make sure there's a smooth flow of commerce, not to restrict, not to bind. But because you don't object, they get away with it. Because you don't demand your liberty. You don't demand your freedom. You don't demand that they suffer consequences for their actions. These usurpations continue. 9/11 is talked about in a way from one side, blaming George Bush and the federal government. It was a conspiracy, and they brought the building down. And on the other side, it was the Saudis and it was the terrorists that hate us that brought the buildings down. I look at the facts. And the facts point to Bush, the Democrats, and the Republicans failed. Their primary job in Washington was to protect the borders of this republic, and they didn't do it. I don't care about anything else. That's what I care about. Get the job done. They didn't get the job done. They did not secure the borders. You can have Homeland Security all day patrolling. That won't cut it. Are you being duped? Is this perpetual war? Is this what the founders envisioned on this glorious July 3rd, celebrating the July 4th holiday? Did they envision this? Did they envision that we would be the policemen of the world, sending your sons and daughters all over the world to supposedly democratize countries, to give them Playboy and Penthouse and X-rated channels and tell Saudi Arabia Bob and Bill must marry? No wonder why they're angry. But if they're our enemy, don't we need to kill them? Do we need to kill them? With this declaration, we said we're going to kill you and your minions, King George. That's what we're going to do. So I say, if ISIS is such a threat, why hasn't Congress declared war and killed them? We declared World War I, World War II, Germany twice. Japan never declared war on Russia. They were our ally, yet we had the Cold War. Or maybe they're just lying. Or maybe they're just busy doing what they shouldn't be doing, because when you're doing not what you should be doing, you're not doing what you should be doing. When you're doing what you shouldn't be doing, you're not doing what you should be doing. This holiday is about these issues, about setting down certain principles, certain rules, certain regulations, certain truths. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over the states. An absolute tyranny. We don't like what you say. We're coming into the states and arrest you and put you in our federal courts to prosecute you for hate speech, for hate thought, for not doing something. For not doing something. Since when, in this constitutional republic, can you be charged with a crime for not doing something? A crime occurs when you do something, when you shoot someone, when you steal something, when you impose your will upon someone. But the direct absolute tyranny from Washington says, we're going to create pretended crimes, which is a tyranny over the people of the states of this constitutional republic. But they had to prove it. Now, I could sit here for the next 4 hours and list my proof. That's not what this show is about. This is a celebration of the greatest revolution man has ever seen, the greatest move for liberty, for independence, for the idea that when you're born under the eyes of the law, you're just as equal as a billionaire or a king or a queen. In Congress, July 4th, 1776, the unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's gods entitles them. A decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to separation. We'll be back with the justification for killing British soldiers and declaring independence in these United States of America on Hot News Talk Radio 1240.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240. Hi, this is your computer speaking. I don't feel so well. It's like I've come down with a bug, and I'm getting slower.
Affordable Computers. We fix sick computers. Your hometown guys at Affordable Computers will repair your PC in half the time of the big boys at an affordable price. No tricks, no gimmicks, no computer speak technobabble. Just good, quick, and courteous affordable service and repairs. Want to affordably supercharge your PC? Affordable Computers on Highway 58. Affordable Computers hand builds all desktops in-house. If you're looking for a better-than-new refurb laptop, $150 will get you a Dell or another name brand at Affordable Computers. Affordable Computers, Highway 58, between Arby's and Taco Bell. Also Fort O, Battlefield Parkway, near Holcomb's. Affordable Computers, we service what we sell. Call 499-1975. That's 499-1975.
Wow, this is amazing. I'm feeling great. Supercharged.
Do you feel better outside your home or business than in? Indoor air quality is important. Mildew, mold, smoke, water, and rodent damage are prime causes of poor indoor air quality. Ducts, Indoor Air Professionals, better known as Duct Busters, cleans HVAC systems using 127 definable Duct Busters steps. Let Mark Thompson address the indoor air quality at your business to help reduce employee illnesses. Prevent fires by cleaning your dryer vents. Mark and his parents, Dick and Joan Thompson, have been building our local economy and helping local people with HVAC systems 16 years. Ducts, Indoor Air Professionals. Call 876-9907. 876-9907. Ducks. Call now.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
You love your hometown. Are you interested in free markets, in local economy? Do you hope that Chattanooga can survive the next meltdown, the next chain of disasters in the national economy? What's the best way to live out the ideals of self-government and self-determination? Join me, David Toulis, weekdays 1 to 3.
Hot News Talk 1240.
Love your neighbor, buy local.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Hot News Talk 1240.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
If you have the DTs, the Jakes, because your phone is on the fritz, you have nomophobia. You need help. Your telecom doctor is in. Cell Surgeon at Northgate Mall. Cell Surgeon yanks open the ribcage of your phone, pries out the dead heart, and puts in the beating life that you lead on your cell phone. Broken screen, phone not charging, water damage, battery given out? Cell Surgeon at Northgate Mall next Old Chicago Pizza. Check us out on Facebook. Open Sunday. Cell Surgeon. We bring your phone back to life.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Fox News Radio. I'm Lillian Wu. Victims of a terror attack remembered 1 week later in Britain. Big Ben striking noon, a moment of silence observed nationwide there.
In memory of the 30 British people killed by a gunman with links to ISIS at a Tunisian beach resort. Flags flew at half-staff. play was delayed at Wimbledon, and Formula One racing drivers stopped their practice sessions ahead of the British Grand Prix.
Fox Radio Simon Owen, a Fort Bragg soldier charged with creating a panic at a mall in North Carolina after appearing there with an assault rifle and other military gear. Police say he was preparing to have photos taken with the equipment when 911 calls were received about an armed male at the mall. And as Greece gears up for a referendum on its financial crisis, word that protesters raided a supermarket handing out food to people in an Athens suburb. Fox News, we report, you decide.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Welcome back. This is Bullet sitting in for Russell, our digital drive guy, celebrating the 4th of July Independence Day weekend, the Declaration of Independence in Congress, July 4th, 1776, the unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America. States United of America. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, and among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This is one of the most important lines. To secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it. Right from Thomas Jefferson, from the Declaration of Independence. Tommy said this would be a day that we would celebrate with food, fun, family, and fireworks. From this day forward, we will celebrate for decades, centuries, years to come, the birth of a new nation, a nation that had liberty breathed into it, that had the unique idea that you as an individual were as powerful as a king under the eyes of the law, that you would be treated no less than a king under the eyes of the law. That's changed. That has changed. Your status is diminished now. You have a diminished status. If the founders were alive today, boy, would things change. But it's only changed through our ignorance, through not knowing, through deception, subversion, perversion. After the Declaration, the Constitution was being drafted based on the founders wanting to fix the Articles of Confederation. And before it was even tried, the lawyers tried to subvert and pervert it. They always will. The Federalists always will. The lawyers always will. The bankers always will. They haven't changed in 6,000 years. They will never change. It is their nature to steal your money, to manipulate, to subvert, to pervert, to believe that you are not created equal. See, the idea that you're created equal comes from God. And a lot of these guys don't believe in a God. Oh, that's a fairy. That's a But you know what's interesting about that? I have for 40 years challenged anyone to prove the theory of evolution. And they haven't done it. They have refused to come on the air and talk about it. I have for 40 years challenged someone to come on the air and tell me how any gun law could be constitutional. They refuse to do it. I have for 40 years challenged people to come on the air and tell me where anything other than gold and silver is lawful money in this constitutional republic, and they refuse to do it. You know why? Because they're afraid of you. Because they're prevaricators. It's not about me. It's about me being the mouthpiece for you, and they're afraid of you. As long as they keep you in the blind, like a mushroom, in the dark and feeding you crap, they're happy. And that's what the major media does. What we choose to do here at Hot News Talk Radio is to shed some light on the truth. And yeah, we have the truth. We are the keeper of the truth. Evidenced by the fact that we'll allow anyone to come on here and challenge our views. They very rarely do. Because liars don't like light shed on them. They're like cockroaches. When the lights come on, the cockroaches spread. And that's what liars are. They're little cockroaches. The left that has spread the idea that you are part of a collective whole, that your individuality depends on the collective whole. They're like little cockroaches. And in Washington, D.C., the occupiers of our republic since 1864 are like little cockroaches. You turn the light on when they scurry. That's why the media has to be controlled by the Republicans and the Democrats and the entire socialist system in Washington. This is not what our founders envisioned. As a matter of fact, here are some other justifications for saying we're going to kill you now. Because that's really what this declaration was. Once you decide you're going to break away and you're no longer going to listen to or obey, like a good little doggy, your masters that have guns and have cords and create the illusion of justice, create the illusion of fairness, create the illusion of equity, you have to prepare to go to jail or die. And our founding fathers were prepared to go to jail and die because they were calling the king out, and he didn't like that. So they knew by signing this there was going to be bloodshed, that people were going to die. To gain their liberty, is it better to be a slave alive or to fight for a chance to be free for your liberty? That was the position the founders took. They didn't want to be live slaves. They wanted to risk everything, which they did. They lost everything. Rich men lost everything. It was General Lafayette that said, "You fire on my house first." That's what he told his troops. We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America in General Congress, assembled appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for our intentions due in the name and by the authority of the good people of the colonies, solemnly publish and declare. This is interesting. By the authority of the good people of the colonies. It wasn't them just unilaterally saying we're doing this. But in a republic, you grant certain permission for individuals to represent you. That these united colonies are and of right ought to be free and independent states. That they are absolved from all allegiance to the British crown. And that the political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved. And that as free and independent states, they have the full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do. And for the support of this declaration with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, this is important. We mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortune, and our sacred honor. Would you do that today? Listen how powerful these words are. These guys were signing their death warrant, going up against England, the most powerful force in the world. This little tiny country of 13 colonies wasn't really even a country. With the firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, saying God's going to protect us. We mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. Wow. Do you know anyone today that has ever existed in your lifetime that would do that? That would even use the word sacred honor? It's amazing and breathtaking. That's the last paragraph on the Declaration because it is so important. Here are some of the reasons why July 4th, 1776 was an important date in history. Here are some of the justifications for killing British soldiers, for slaughtering them, for, in essence, being terrorists and rebels and revolutionaries He has refused to assent to laws the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. Let me just ask you this. Do you think any of this is happening today? I want you to hear why the founders decided to declare independence from the king. See if anything of any of this rings true. He has forbidden his governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance unless suspended in their operation till his assent should be obtained. And when so suspended, he is utterly neglected to attend to them. In other words, they weren't very independent. King George had to look it over, had to give a stamp of approval. It took weeks, months, years sometimes, like our current Congress. He has refused to pass other laws for the accommodation of large districts of people unless the people would relinquish their right of representation in the legislature, a right necessary and formidable to tyrants only. He has called together legislative bodies to places unusual, uncomfortable, and distant from the depository of their public record for the sole purpose of fatiguing them into compliance with his measures. Do we see that today? Where people have to travel long distances for redress of grievance. To fight is fatiguing. It's a lot of paperwork. If you're not a lawyer, how can you then fight them? You know, law is supposed to be based on common English language. It's not supposed to be complicated. One really should not have to have a lawyer to be able to argue their case in court. And I'll go one step further. The idea that one should have to cite a case before a judge is absurd. Why is it your job, if you're arguing that you have a right to keep and bear arms under the Second Amendment, that you have to show cases and cites from higher courts? Cannot that judge read the Bill of Rights in the Second Amendment? The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Why does it need to go further than that? Why do you have to be exhausted by doing research and briefs and motions and other court decisions? Can't you just pull out the Bill of Rights, which I have right here in front of me? A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. Why was that put in there? So the states could have their own militia, their own army to protect themselves from foreign invasion and the federal government they created. That was its function, but that wasn't enough. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Now, we just had seen where the right is. It comes from God. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That's you and me. Shall not be infringed. Well, you got to pass a background check. You got to take a course on how to shoot. Well, wait a second. Either this is a right or it's not. Is it a right or isn't it? And if not, tear it up. Why do I have to file a brief for a motion? Are you blind, deaf, and dumb, judge, or what is it that you can't read and understand English? You're exhausting me. I got to travel long distances now to appeal. What the hell is going on? To assent to your laws, I got to be exhausted? That's was part of what the founders were saying. Stop. He has obstructed the administration of justice by refusing to assent to laws for establishing judicial powers. He had made judges independent on his will alone. Ho ho! Judges independent on his will alone. Does that not sound like federal judges? Boy, if I don't play the game, guess what? I'm not going to be appointed. I got to play the political game to get appointed. To heck to what the law is, to heck to what rights are. He has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarm of officers to harass our people and eat out our substance. Can we all together, please, tell me what agency that is? Can everybody together tell me? Come on, everybody together. He has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms. I love that. Hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out our substance. What do you think that? Did I hear you say IRS? I did, didn't I? So it's okay to have tyranny from England, but not tyranny in this constitutional republic. Sent forth hither swarms. I like that. The next time I have a discussion with one of them, I'm going to say, were you sent forth as a hither swarm from Washington? You union member Democrat who's a collection agency for the Federal Reserve? He has kept among us in times of peace standing armies without the consent of our legislatures. He has affected to render the military independent and superior of the civil power. Boy, we've seen that. Independent of the civil power. He has kept among us in times of peace standing armies without the consent of our legislatures. You know, the standing army issue is a big one, as the founders were extremely fearful of maintaining a standing army forever. Now, the Navy's in the Constitution, and the Navy's primary function is to protect the boundaries of these United States. But the idea of having an army, a standing army, sent chills down the founders' spine, because they just were about to throw off a standing army, King George's standing army. Why do you need standing armies when you have militias? What is the purpose of a standing army? It's to enforce the powers of a central government. Well, they were just throwing off a big central government. They didn't want a standing army. As a matter of fact, in the Constitution, it can only last for 2 years. The appropriation has to be every 2 years for a standing army. Shivers right up and down their spine. They have the idea of a standing army. No. We have the militia of the several states. That's how our men were called to war, through the militias of the several states. Now, this is part of the history that the Marxist fascists in Washington are trying to erase. Not just the Confederate flags, not those symbols. And symbolism is important. It is very, very important. And they're trying to eliminate that symbolism to erase any history. And Obama told you he was going to do this. And the dummy rats said, we're going to rewrite history. We're going to remake America. And that's what they're doing. You sit back and go, oh, that's okay. It's only a flag. It doesn't mean anything. It's only a symbol. Yeah, call us rebels in the paper. Oh, it's all right. Can I have another one, sir? Can I have another one, sir? Come on. First thing I saw when I moved down here is a picture of Abraham Lincoln at Allen Elementary. What are you thinking? Come on. This guy murdered 500,000 people, and you got a picture of him in there? How much federal semen are you going to take before you choke? Stop it. The most powerful word in the English language is no. I am not going to comply with what is not constitutional, what is not biblical, what is not ordained by God. Period. And that's what the founders were saying. But they're eloquent in their speech, as David Toulis is. And David will be on 1 to 3. And you'll hear eloquence. Like David could, I think he's reincarnated from back then, because his speech is as eloquent as theirs. I'm a little rougher. I'd rather punch him in the face. And I don't know that that gets the results that we're looking for. However, this is what the founders were talking about. We've had enough. Do you think all this stuff is new? Come on. I read what my daughter is learning in history, and I just shake my head and go, you got to be kidding me. And I fight them once in a while. And I know you do too as a parent. But you're exhausted, and that's what the founders said. We're exhausted. You're exhausting us, government. Stop. Stop. Now, today's a holiday, tomorrow and Sunday. 3 days, the politicians will be home. They'll be writing no laws. And while we have full-time lawmakers in a country that's supposed to be free, it's beyond me. Because the law is the antithesis of freedom. I mean, it's an oxymoron. You can't have a free country when you're passing laws. Law is a compulsion. Freedom isn't. So that alone is crazy. But for 3 days, we're free, right? We're free. He has combined with us, with others, to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their acts of pretended legislation. Whoa. Whoa. Was this written yesterday? He has erected a multitude of new offices, followed by he has combined with others to subject us to foreign jurisdiction. Wow. Do you ever feel like you're in foreign jurisdiction? That you're in a court you shouldn't be in? That you're being served with papers you shouldn't be served? It's like, where do you have jurisdiction? I didn't give you jurisdiction over me in this. The jurisdiction is personam and rem. Personam is in person, when you're actually physically there. And then they can take jurisdiction. You're here. But only for a little time, a small length of time, because you could say, well, wait a second. I don't need to be in family court. You sure? I know you have in personam jurisdiction, but do you have in rem jurisdiction? Do you have property jurisdiction? Do you have subject matter jurisdiction? Well, no, I guess we don't. This is we'll have to transfer this to another court. For protecting them by a mock trial from punishment for any murders which they should commit in the inhabitants of these states, for imposing taxes without our consent. This is a big one. Imposing taxes without our consent. Now, you may say, well, you know what? And I heard this argument growing up. We need taxes to make how are we going to build the roads? How are we going to supply the military? How are we going to? Well, ask me. If I think it's worth it, I'll pay for it. But to compel me to do it, that's not freedom. That's not liberty. It's slavery. Right here. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. How can one state you have liberty and then compel me to do something? Well, vote. Let's say we vote. Let's say we vote for a conservative that's not going to raise or reduce or eliminate taxes. You have the Federal Reserve banking system that emits fraudulent currency, which is a tax because it reduces your purchasing power. It is a hidden tax. In Keynesian economics, Keynes said not 1 in a million understand the process of inflation. It is a hidden tax. It is a fraud. That's why gold and silver coin is and was the money of account of these United States of America. We're going to end with a celebration. That is to say that now that you know there is no excuse, now that you know the most important language in your vocabulary is I'm not going to comply with anything unchristian, ungodly, illegal, or unconstitutional, as the founders did. You just have to grow a little set. They had a big set. I mean, their set was huge. You just need a little one. And then you'll see your neighbor will agree with you, and your mom and your dad and your husband. And then it grows and grows and grows and grows and grows. And all of a sudden, guess what? They'll cave because they'll see liberty will outweigh tyranny and slavery. But when you just sit back, oh, I'm going to quit. I'll accept the filing. It'll all be good. God will take care. You lose. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their creator with certain inalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I love those words. Never forget it. That's what the 4th of July is about. That's what we're celebrating: American independence, American individualism, a nation that was born by God. This is his country. I'm Bullet. Have a great 4th of July weekend.
This is a modern world. This is the modern world.